Ms. Zuckerman? Here. Dr. Mogar?
Here. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of, to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of the Act, the Montville Township Board of Education provided a public notice of this meeting, which included the time, date, and location that was posted at the Montville Township Municipal Building, all Montville Public Schools, the Montville Public Library, the Montville Township Board of Education Administrative Office Building, the district website, and advertised in the Daily Record and the Montville Tap, the board's official newspapers on January 28, 2024.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent's report.
Yes, just a quick report about HIV with the report out. This is for the first semester of last school year. So this is September to December of 2023. So just overall, we had a total of 25 incidents. 13 of them were at the high school, 11 at Lazar, and 1 at William Mason. At the high school, we had 5 of violence, 5 of vandalism, and 5 instances of substance abuse. So that's what leads up to those incidents. For HIV, we had 2 confirmed at the high school, 11 at Lazar confirmed, 1 at William Mason, for a total of 14. That 14 HIV confirmed for that first couple of months of school were 6 fewer than the previous year. And we had fewer amount, we actually even had more HIV alleged cases. So even though we had more alleged, we found fewer cases, which is good. We had some new measures that were put in place in Lazar last year to work on these issues, and I think that was working. And we'll see what the data proves out for the second half of the year. The violence, vandalism, and substance abuse at the high school, violence always sounds a little worse than what it is. Usually when there's a fight at the high school, it's between 2 friends. One time it was over food, and different things like that. So it's not as bad as it seems. The vandalism, we just had some graffiti that was in the bathroom, in the girls' room, so things like that. So nothing that was that major there. So that's the report for that. We also have to each year do a self-assessment on HIV, and the maximum the school can get is at 78, and all our schools scored at 77, except for Valley View scored themselves at 76, and Lazar scored themselves at 73. So that's just, we're going to look into that with Lazar. I think they were just creating themselves a little more harder than some of the other ones, and we'll talk about that approach to try and just calibrate that a little bit better. But overall, very good statistics, and we're seeing some of the trends going in the right direction.
So in the agenda, we're supposed to have Charlene Peterson come and do the board evaluation, review the board self-evaluation. She did not make it tonight, so we're going to be skipping that. We have Dr. Shorter, who's going to give us a quick presentation on the NJGPA test scores.
Thank you, David. As you mentioned, tonight's going to be a very brief presentation. One of the requirements that school districts have to fulfill is to share out the results of the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment, or as David mentioned, NJGPA. This test, just to differentiate a little bit from NJSLA, which is the larger test that tests multiple grade levels. This is strictly an 11th grade high school test, and it's a test that's required for them to receive a diploma or graduate. We'll talk a little bit about there are different options or avenues if they don't pass this test, but this is a relatively new test. It's only 3 years, in existence. Year 1 was a field test, so the state kind of threw that out. So this is really only the second year that we have any usable data to work with. So it's still in its infancy, and hopefully, as usually our standard is 3 years in a row of a test. Very often you can give us a pretty good trending analysis. This one isn't quite there yet, but we'll just see where next year's goes to determine that. As I taken by all 11th graders. This was from spring of this year. Students are required to pass this to graduate. Those that don't, there are other pathways, as I mentioned. So the first pathway, obviously, is passing this. And I think it's important to note that this test measures the standards of 10th grade English language arts. So basically it measures mastery of English language arts for 10th grade. And for the math portion of this, it's Algebra 1 and Geometry. So those are the areas that they're testing our 11th graders and all 11th graders across the state. So if they successfully demonstrate proficiency in those two areas, then they can graduate. If not, there are a couple other pathways. The second pathway requires them to perform a certain minimum level on another competency test, which I listed a few there as examples, PSAT, SAT, ACT, etc. And there's cut scores established for them. So many of our students, if they're unable to pass the NJGPA, they successfully score above the cutoff score in those areas. For the very few students, we have very few each year, if they're unable to fulfill those first two pathways, the third pathway is always an option where they can put a portfolio assessment together of their skills and their competencies, and that portfolio is sent down to the New Jersey Department of Education for evaluation. And any of our students that have gone through that process, I think we're at 100% pass rate on the portfolio assessment. So there are a few ways to lead to graduation. The state categorizes it really in a much more simple manner than the other state testing. It's really just two categories: what they need not ready to graduate, or graduation ready. And you can see our results on this slide for English language arts. Our high school 11th graders, 91.6 were deemed graduation ready. And just as a comparison, the state, which I know historically we perform pretty significantly above what the state performs, but just as a kind of guide of where we fall as compared to the state. And then students with IEPs, which is a required category to report out on, we're at 66.1%. Just as a comparison, last year was the first real non-field test of this. We did fall a few percentage points below last year in English language arts, so it amounts to about 6 or 7 students, fewer that passed this year than last year. For mathematics, again, this is typically an area where scores are a little bit lower. Again, this is Algebra 1 and Geometry, and you see MTHS students, 75.6, and state level of passing or deemed graduation ready in math is basically a little above 50%. Just as a comparison in math, we did decline a little bit in this distribution of the test. Students last year scored around the 80 percentile, so we did drop just a little bit over 4% in that area. One of the requirements also is to share with the board and public the subgroup performance, and we have enough students to compare at the ethnic levels of Hispanic, Asian, and white, and these are the scores that each one of those ethnic groups scored on the English language arts. And that was pretty consistent with last year across those subgroups. In math, same thing. And they were pretty consistent with last year also across those subgroups. So once we have this data, we kind of approach it the same way every time we receive state testing data. The first thing is to look at the scores, share them out with our supervisors and principals, have them start digesting those, working with their departments to see if there's anything that's surfacing about with how our kids did. This isn't a great diagnostic test. We get much more data out of the NJSLA testing that we do in multiple grade levels. This is strictly a graduation test. At least so far, we haven't found this data all that valuable. But like I said, typically after 3 years of administration of the test, that usually leaves some value with the data. But we still take a look at it. We look at our the articulation of the curriculum. The standards that were adopted in 2023 math and ELA are relatively new, so that's always something we're looking at to make sure our instruction and our courses are aligned with those curriculum standards. And then we dig a little bit deeper. We start looking at ways where maybe the students that didn't do so well, how can we try to improve their performance? And we do that through our support classes and learning labs at the high school. Onboarding new students, very often the students that come to us aren't quite at the level of the existing Montville high school students, so we have an onboarding process to try to make their arrival into a new system, as smooth as possible so they can focus on their academics and not experience that anxiety of being in a new place. So we try to minimize that as much as possible through that onboarding process. And then, as we always do, we're working, with staff and administration and helping develop their professional skills. That could mean adding new programs, like SLOT at the end, retention strategies, and use-based learning over time. And also, one of the areas that we've really focused on the last few years, because our numbers of L students, ESL students, has risen, so we have different types of instructional models like sheltered instruction and elevation for teachers to help address those students so they can perform a little bit better on these state assessments. That's essentially it. Like I said, it's a one-grade test, and at least in the last 2 years, we've gone pretty consistently across the board.
Thank you. Are there any comments, questions from the board members?
I have a question, two actually. Any assessment as to the drop? I mean, it's not a significant drop in that.
Not yet. I mean, we are 3 or 4 percentage points. With a small cohort, kids testing somewhere around 230. We're probably talking fewer than 10 kids. That can kind of move either way. So I'm not sure if that's going to reveal anything with certainty, but I know Sandy Schwartz, our math supervisor, is always, she jumps into this as soon as it comes out. So she'll look at that with her department once the year is rolling.
What is sheltered instruction?
I'll let Andrew explain that. She can probably do a little better job than I can with that.
Sheltered instruction is a protocol that's used when you have multilingual learners in your classroom, and it basically just, it's multidisciplinary and it is multisensory, so a lot of pictures and just engaging the students. It works and it's beneficial for every student, but it just is a protocol that is evidence-based, and it's an option that schools use for ELs to become more acclimated and to learn the language within their regular classrooms a little bit quicker.
And Christine?
I just want to compliment all of you because a father told me that they had moved here. This was 2 years ago when I was running for re-election, and they had moved here from Essex County, and they had 2 daughters, and they were behind. They said, "Mom was so advanced when they came here. The kids didn't know what was going on. They were afraid." And Montville staff got them up to par within a couple months. And they were so grateful, and they were so happy they moved to Montville Township because of our academic program. So I just wanted to say that is a great part of your program for new kids that come in. Kudos.
People, primary reason coming to Montville is the schools. But I just also want to say, having basically a snapshot of each grade as they move through the 11th grade isn't going to give you that kind of information that you get from the other exams where you see year-over-year growth. And so trying to dig out the numbers and usefulness from this data is probably going to be very difficult. So, but it's a requirement.
And actually, kind of a little bit to that point, so are you actually able to compare the data from the same students from NJSLA and see, like, I know it's only new the past year or two, but are you finding that they're performing consistently, the kids in that same cohort, the NJSLA cities? Like, is it, or we're not able to do that yet?
To connect it to this session?
Right.
Yeah, I don't think there's really a mechanism to do that. I don't know.
And there's a gap because for 2 years of COVID, there was no assessments. So maybe 5 years from now.
Like, eventually that would be, I think,
But
right?
you're going to still have a gap because they may not be required to take it until next year.
Has this prevented any kid that would otherwise graduated from our school? What about statewide? Do you see kids that would have otherwise graduated but are now failing, not passing the 3
Well,
categories?
you can see the state results there. In math, at least only 54% of kids are qualified. So a number of those students are probably looking at those other pathways. I'm not sure what the failure rate of the portfolio assessment, which is that third pathway. I know here we've had 100% of our students pass it that have engaged in it. But I don't have the statistics to find out how many kids actually don't pass it and then will graduate because of that across the state.
What does that really entail, that third pathway?
It's measuring, like I said, English language arts, just 10th grade standards, and then for math it's algebra and geometry. So if a student has to go through that third pathway, that portfolio, it's a collection of their work, portfolio of their work that measures or assesses those standards, English language arts, 10th grade, math, algebra and geometry, and they have to show proficiency through multiple work samples that we have a teacher that works with those students to put those portfolios together. The state has a very prescriptive model we have to follow, and what type of problems the kids have to perform and show that they demonstrate their proficiency. The teacher works with students on that. They put that portfolio together and they package it and send it down to the state, and they assess it, evaluate it, and determine whether or not are kids meet that proficiency.
The interesting thing is that it is graded based on a rubric by the teacher. And then it's signed off by the director of school counseling and the supervisor and the principal. And then they attest that the child did all this work, this was the grade that they got, and they send it down. I think that a lot of times when it gets down to the state level, it's just kind of a stamp of approval.
That's
We have about 99-point-something% of our students that graduate. And most times it's 100%, and we have 96% that go on to 2 or 4-year colleges. So this assessment doesn't line up exactly with what we see here.
Then let's move on. Did you have any other comments? No? Okay, Dean, business administrator's report?
No report.
Okay, move on to section G, committee reports. Karen, facilities finance.
We met as a committee right before tonight's board meeting and talked a great deal about the summer construction projects, which I'm sure the community has noticed is going on.
Okay. Michelle.
We do have some new curriculum to review. We just set a meeting for August 20th prior to the next board meeting.
Okay. Joe, policy.
We'll be meeting on Tuesday, August 6th, to review a policy update for Strauss Essex.
Okay, great. Communications, Mike Rappaport.
No report.
Okay, safety, Christine.
No report.
Okay, the delegate liaisons from Jersey School Boards, Karen.
New Jersey School Boards recently appointed a new deputy director, Dr. Nicholas Diaz, and he will be working hand in hand with our executive director, Dr. Timothy Purnell. There was a school board member of the year luncheon in June, which I attended. It was very nice. And we are also looking at a refresh, if you will, of a 2018 report on a non-college bound learner. And this report will be called, change the name to Career Focused Learner, and we'll have another meeting Thursday night.
Okay. Michelle.
No report.
I didn't get to say what committee it was. Okay. Morris County Educational Services, Joe.
We have our next meeting on August 14th.
Okay, drug awareness, Joe.
No meetings in July and August.
Okay, great. Charlie's not here. Karen, Cedar Hill liaison.
No report.
Okay, Charlie's not here. Joe, Valley View liaison.
The only thing I have to say is we're just waiting on finding out the vendor that we're going to have for the Valley View playground renovation. Is approved or not. Going through some steps, but that's it.
Okay. John, William Mason, anything?
No.
Okay, Mike Palmer, Woodlawn.
No report.
Okay, Michelle Lazar. No report. Right. Mike Rapport, High School. No report. Okay. I don't think we need to talk, we don't say anything about negotiations. I think we're doing well. Thank you very much, Scott. Very good. Okay, let's get to the first public participation section. If you have any comments about anything on the agenda, please come to the microphone. There will be another public participation section at the end. If you have any other comments about anything on the agenda, seeing none, we'll move to the consent resolution, I through N. Need a motion, please?
So moved.
Second, please. Thank you. Okay, any comments on section I, the minutes? No. Section J? Section K, facilities finance?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have questions about the tuition for the out-of-district placements. Understand the differences between K5 and M5, which M5 is out-of-district placements. And specifically, because I saw typically the out-of-district placements are listed by student ID. But the K5 ones seem to be grouped or something like that. So I saw something like that in was over $400,000, and I just didn't understand how that was working.
You have two different things occurring. One is our compliance to purchasing law, which is the K section, in which we're required to have the board approve any purchases greater than the bid threshold, which is $44,000. So in the K section, it's all about dollars. I don't need to know who the kids are. I don't need to know how many kids there are. I just need to approve that particular area of education being expended as the year proceeds. In the case of M, we're having you approve the process of sending an individual person out of the district to another place. So we go from purchasing in large overarching umbrella down to very, very specific, one specific child who is being educated outside of Montville.
Thank you.
But those are not like, are you paying both bills?
It's the same bill.
It's the same.
It's just being,
That's what I want to make sure.
it's being captured in two different ways.
Right. Okay, any questions about K? No? Okay, let's move on to section L, personnel. Questions? No? Section M, curriculum. Any questions? You got your question, Mike? And section N, nothing, policy. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Petrolino?
Yes.
Mr. Daughtry?
Yes.
Dr. Cordellino? Yes. Mrs. Dana?
Yes.
Mr. Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Rappaport?
Yes.
Ms. Zuckerman? Yes. Dr. Modra?
Yes. Skip to closed section. Old business, general board comments. Does anybody have any old business or general board comments? Seeing none, I would move on to section S, public participation. If you have anything, the public here has anything that you'd like to say to the board on any item whatsoever, please come to the microphone, state your name, and tell us what you're thinking.
Good evening. Thank you. Scott Riotto, Tewksbury resident, MTHS history teacher, MTA president. 2 questions. At the May 21st meeting, the board approved the job description for middle school grade leader. That was L7 on the agenda for May 21st. That job description was written improperly. The language was flawed because it was not consistent with the MTA master contract. Will the board be approving a revised, corrected version of that job description?
Yes. Yes, we're working with the middle school leadership on that, and then we'll have a new job description for you shortly.
Presumably by the August meeting?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Second question is, on tonight's agenda, J3, the public schools emergency virtual remote instruction plan. Will that be posted on the website? Where could I access that?
Yeah, we'll take a look at that tomorrow. It should be on the website, yeah, right? Absolutely. So I'll let you know as soon as we get it up.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, you got seconds. Okay, good night, everyone. See you in August.